Hello and welcome to this pit stop for SpaceCorp 2025 to 2300 AD, designed by John Butterfield and published by GMT Games. These are the multiplayer rules for 2 to 4 players of SpaceCorp, and in that game, each of the players is a rival corporation looking to start here on Earth and explore out initially into the inner solar system via Mars out to the asteroid belt. That's in the first of 3 eras, the Mariners era. We're then going to play on 2 other maps, if you wish to play the full game, into the Planeteers and the Starfarers era, looking to again develop further and further out from Earth. No matter what of the eras you're playing in though, it's all going to be based on the same basic mechanisms, in that a player is going to take one action on their turn. Now when you choose to conduct an action, you're going to look at your own info, which is down here, and it starts very basic, but you're going to be able to upgrade this by putting cards in here. Or you look at the info of any other player. If you choose to use your own info to basically power the move, the action, then that's fine. If you choose another player's, they get to draw 1 card as a reward. So let's look at the basic actions we can do. Let's start with research. Now I'll start with a base power here of 2 research. I can then add cards from my hand to the action I'm taking, as long as they've got the relevant action on them. In this case, I've added 2 more research, so I've got 4 research, and all research means is I get to draw cards, either from the 4 on offer here, and they'll get refilled towards the end of my turn, or I can take them from the top of the deck. Each of the 3 eras has their own deck of cards, which will be slightly different and offer slightly different options. So once I've started drawing cards into my hand, I'm going to want to use them to do some things. Now, we're talking about my infra here. Maybe before I start looking to move off Earth and start doing things, or at any point, I can look to build up here by taking the upgrade action. I have to choose a card that says it may be upgraded, and then I can put it in one of these 3 slots. And when I put that there, that then adds, as with the base ones, to all the actions of that type I choose. So let's go on and do a move action. Now, I've got a base move of 4. When I look to move one of these teams, I have to first of all always spend 1 to take off from any area that I'm on. Then I check and see if the area I've got has got any gravity. In this case, Earth has got 2 gravity. And then I check to see whether I'm crossing any of these lines on the board. Now I'm just going to come out to this lunar Lagrange point. So that's going to cost me 1 to take off, 2 for the gravity, and it always costs me 1 to land again. I've got a move of 4. I don't need to add any cards to that. And I can move my team off there into that lunar Lagrange point. Once I'm on that point, I've now got an option to build, because it has got a build value here. In this case, it's a build value of 1. And again, I've got the option of what I want to do. I might want to upgrade my infra first to give me explore and build. We'll talk about explore in a second. But let's say I do go for build. I've now got a base build power of 1. I only need a build of 1 to build on the Lagrange point. I can build one of these bases down here. Now in the Mariners era, you've got 6 bases available to you, but in fact only 2 can be built on this Lagrange point, because a lot of the others require certain things on these exploration tiles which you'll be able to explore at different sites, and we're going to get to. So in this case, I can build either a research to draw a card or a spaceport to make my move easier. So I'm going to build a spaceport in there for my action using my build 1, and my base is happy there. Once you have any spaceports in play, that then opens up a free move, if you like. It's called Transport Team, and if you've got a team you haven't done anything with on a turn, it can move to or from bases as long as one of them's a spaceport. So now I can ignore this Earth gravity. I don't have to worry about any moves, because there's a free action on my turn. I can move that up there to join me on my spaceport. Now that's all well and good, but we're going to want to get further out into the solar system. So in this case, from my spaceport, I'm going to look to move up here to Deimos. Now it's again 1 to take off, 1 for crossing this line, 3 for crossing this line, and 1 to land. So that's a total move of 6. As we know, my infra's got 4 in it, so I need to play a couple of cards from my hand to add 2 value there. And with my 6th move, I can make it all the way out to Deimos and land there. Once I'm on Deimos, I cannot immediately build as I could on that Lagrange point. I'm going to have to explore. This E1 and this square means that it's got an exploration possibility. So I've already got an explore 1 here, so that's fine. I don't have to add any cards. And I'll get to add an explore tile. Don't forget, all the other players have taken 1 action at a time. As I say, in between these actions, it's not just me taking all of these and taking over the board. There are different types of explore tiles I can find when I go here, and you're going to draw the top one from here. In this case, I've drawn exotic elements. Now that gives me 2 pieces of information down here. The first one is that's a profit symbol, which means that I can move my profit up 1. At the end of however many eras you choose to play, whoever's got the most profit around here on the profit track is going to be the winner of the game. It also has there a production value, which means that I can score points from this by taking the produce value. But first of all, I'm going to have to build a base on there if I want to really make it efficient for me. In order to build on Demos, I need a build value of 5. Now, that's obviously going to be slightly tricky. I've got an infra of 1. Let's say I can add 2 more for my hand. That only puts me on 3. Well, that introduces us to the first of the special types of cards you get in the game. Throughout the deck, and you'll start with some on the first 2 eras, you get time cards. And they can be used in 2 different ways. If you're doing one of these basic build, move, or explore actions, you can split the value that you've got for your action between 2 of your teams, or you can double that value to use for one of your teams. So in this case, I can take my 3 build, use a time to turn it into 6, and that will allow me to build a base here on Demos. Now, that then gives me access to a few more different types of things I can build. I can build a refinery on there, which is going to improve my produce. So what's produce? That's another type of action you can take. And the amount of produce that you build up is how many different sites you can produce from. And it's straight up going to give you points. So if I put my refinery on there, I'd add 1 to that P1. And by playing a produce card, I would make 2 profit out of it. You've also got industrial that will make it easier to build in the same region. So I could pop one in here. It'll be easier to build in the Mars area for me. Biolab and attraction and in fact industrial all require certain things to be on the site though. When we flip these over, you can see there are different sorts of things. We can get abundant ores. That would make building a base cheaper. With water, that's what's going to give you access to industrial. And for natural wonders, it gives you profit, but you can also put them and make them start making money for you by building an attraction on there. Now, while I'm doing all these things, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to complete some of these contracts. Now you'll see that some of them are quite basic. For example, do a first produce action. So once I built this refinery, I could play that produce card and I would get to move this across and it would make me profit. And all of these contracts are going to make you profit, and they're also going to be one of the 2 things that's going to drive towards the end of this particular era. Building 3 Lagrange bases, building 3 non-Lagrange bases, cards in 3 infra slots, which we haven't quite managed yet, or bases in 4 different regions of the board as delineated by these lines. The other one here is your genetics cube has advanced 2 spaces. Now I haven't talked about these cubes down here because they more come into play in the other eras, but just be aware that via certain actions you are going to be able to push your genetics cube around. For example, it's the other side of that research card that I showed you earlier, and this cube will move around, and when we get onto the next era briefly, I will talk about what these cubes do for you. Now I said that this is one of the ways that drives on the end of the game. When 6 of these contracts have been fulfilled, everyone else gets to take 1 more action, and then we're going to move on onto the next board. Or if we get all the way through the deck, players will continue taking turns as they can until a certain number pass, player count dependent, and then we're going to move on to the next board. Now there's a couple of things you're going to want to take with you or take note before we move on to the next board. If any player has moved to the first beyond or to the second beyond, they take this token, and that's going to give them a slight head start in their starting position when we move onwards. Also, when we finish this era, there's a little thing down here called your legacy production, and there is 1 production site you can take with you, and you'll be able to produce from there next time you take production actions. However we do it via the cards of the contracts, when we finish this era, we're going to take this board and we're going to flip it over. And there's not a map on the other side of this. This in fact becomes a sideboard with some information about the Starfarers era, but also up here we're going to have a set of cards available to us, because when we move on to the next map, you'll see it's similar but slightly different, and there's just a couple of extra rules. One of them is that in the new deck of cards that we get available to us for this era, there are new actions available in there. They're going to help us much more regularly push around this genetics cube and this revelation cube. And when you push a cube back the way to the top of your circle, that's when you get access to those special cards on that sideboard, and they're going to help you break some of the rules of the game and get slight advantages. Other things to know about when we move on to the next era is that those players who got to those beyonds are going to start slightly further out than just down here on the inner solar system. This area inside here is all shielded. When you move out from here, there's radiation, and you're going to have to take actions with that I've got shielded on them on the cards, or you're going to have to build certain types of bases in an area, a shield factory, otherwise you're going to lose profit each time you take an action. New contracts become available. There's also slightly more complicated move rules. It's exactly the same, you have to generate move, but from certain places to certain places, you're going to have to add more move in order to get there. And again, going out to the Ort cloud will allow you to take those beyond markers, which will give you a head start when we move on to The other side of this board is a map, the Starfarers, which again is slightly different in that when you get to stars from inside our own solar system, you don't move anywhere, that you get dragged in turn by turn, that when you explore and build in a solar system, you do them all at once, you have to have quite a high value. And also once you've built up a certain amount of infrastructure in an area, you can start putting colonies into play, and colonies will give you bonuses and score you lots of points, as well as completing your contracts, doing your production, and generally trying to push up your profit so that however many eras you've decided to play, whichever corporation has been the most profitable will be the winner of SpaceCorp. This has been a Game Pit Stop. For more videos like this, check out our YouTube channel. For more in-depth coverage of games, please check out the Game Pit podcast. Thank you.